Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you do not miss any video when I do upload. Okay, let's get straight into it. So I watched a video. There was a video that went viral. Must have been by someone called Stephanie. It was a video about pretty privilege, and she was basically telling her experience about being the less attractive girl in a group of her friends and what that was like for her. And basically she was giving her experience about whether she was in school, her friends already got approached by boys. If they went out, the pretty friends would get someone buying them a drink, sending them a drink, but she didn't get that. And I was just reflecting on my experience. As you can tell by the title of my video, probably it might raise a few eyebrows, but it's to give you guys unfiltered and a real me. So here we go. So I was thinking about my experience as the pretty girl, if you like, and whether I experienced some of the things she was saying, which is the privilege she was saying. And I think my experience was a little different. And I can see some of you saying, oh, who's telling her she's pretty? Girl, you're full of it. But I didn't tell myself I'm pretty. That's the most compliment I got. I don't remember being complimented for the things I always wanted to be complimented about, whether it was you're intelligent. For example, I was in a boarding school, so really I spent most of my time in school around, and what was important then was being smart, participating in all these different clubs that were going on, getting attention for being outstanding for something. And for me, that's what I always craved. And all I kept getting was just, oh, you're pretty, oh, you're pretty. And to give you guys a bit of context, I know beauty is subjective, so depending on where you live in the world, what might be considered beautiful in one part of the world might not be what's considered beautiful. So I come from Uganda, and that's the context I'm placing myself in. So at least in that context, my face, and I will explain later why I'm only saying my face, was considered pretty. And people made me aware of that. However, I don't ever remember walking feeling like I'm better than anyone because I had a pretty face, because for me that's not what I wanted to be recognized for. So what I wanted to be recognized for, I wasn't getting, and that really chipped away at my confidence, because in my society you're not being applauded for being pretty, at least in my context. If anything, it was, if you were pretty, there was a certain mindset that people thought you had about yourself, and therefore they didn't want necessarily to be around you. So for example, they would think, oh, she thinks she's all that, or she thinks she's better than us, or so there was always these preconceived ideas that you had to fight through. It's almost like you had to prove to people that you're more than a pretty face. You're kind, you're smart, you're intelligent, most of the things that used to be recommended to get involved in school by friends, by teachers, there was a club called, there was different clubs, debate club, sports club, music, dance and drama, and Interact Club. So Interact Club was, I would think the equivalent today would be like a socialite. I don't know, those my Ugandan friends who are watching me might agree with me or disagree with me, but basically this was mainly known for kids who wanted to, so they would say, you need to stand and contest for Miss Interact, or you need to be in this sort of beauty pageant. And how I am, that was not me. That was not for me. And I remember actually walking in there one time. They were having their little practice that they had on the weekends, and I spent maybe 10 minutes there because I just didn't fit in. Like, the things they were doing, I was just like, this is not for me. But when I would go in the debate club, then I would not be signed up because, again, just a pretty face, and the people that were in there were very serious people. But yeah, so that was my experience, and it was actually, it made me feel like, it made me not want to try, because I had already been sentenced to a certain a way of thinking that had gone before me. And what was funny was I didn't even fit in with the pretty girls. Every school had pretty girls. Let's just put it out there. Cool people, cool girls and boys. And I didn't fit in. I remember the so-called pretty girl would come in and say to me, you would join our group, but you're such a tomboy. So my being a tomboy, I felt was more like a rebellion against the idea of pretty face. I tried to not to be what it was that they were defining as pretty. And because of that, I was not even approached by boys. I wasn't. There was always whispers in the back, but somehow this front that I put on, always sort of, boys were sort of afraid to approach me. So I didn't get the privilege, if you like, of being classed as pretty, and then obviously automatically pretty brings boys. So I was not a beneficiary of that, because again, like I said, boys were afraid of me because I was a serious tomboy. And then girls didn't feel very comfortable around me because they thought, oh, my boyfriend, because you're pretty face, my boyfriend you might take my boyfriend. It was a very complicated situation. You just didn't know where you belonged. So at least I'm not, of course, saying Stephanie's experience is not real. That's her experience, but I'm also just giving my experience of having grown up being told pretty face. Also in my culture, my context, at least growing up, pretty face equated being lazy. I don't know why, but people would look at you and assume because you have a pretty face, you don't know how to cook, you don't know how to look after yourself. Just because you're a pretty face, somehow a pretty face should cook and feed you. A pretty face you would just get anything because you have a pretty face. Before I filmed this video, I actually sat down and I was like, I'm here because I wanted to be like real about what this pretty privilege thing, having been called that a lot and nothing else other than a pretty face, has that brought me has that been beneficiary to me? Like, have I ever gotten a job because of a pretty face? I know that every job I've applied for is I've gone through an interview, I've sat through. Some jobs I've not got. Some jobs, basically, it was my experience. Everyone wanted experience. So I would not necessarily say I've ever gotten a job because of a pretty face, and that's me. And that's not to say, some of you maybe who are watching have not come across people, quote unquote, who have been classed by whatever society or find yourself in as pretty, that are proud, and you've seen them get things that they don't really deserve based on merit, but because of their pretty face. But was thinking about that, but for me it was the opposite. I always strived to get away from just being a pretty face, because that's all I got. And again, my context is being smart in class was actually, it counted for something, and that's all these other, and being known for all these other activities other than just a pretty face. And I don't know if this sort of made me give up on myself, in the sense that, especially academically, because I necessarily wasn't at that phase when I was trying to find myself. I wasn't necessarily doing well academically. Later on, when I just sort of accepted myself and got down and took myself seriously, I started to do very well. But in that phase when I was confused and I'm trying to sort of to strive and prove, I actually wasn't necessarily performing well academically, and that further reinforced the narrative that basically all you have to offer is, at least it was maybe around when I really struggled with trying to prove myself, was between 12, maybe between 13 and 15, 16, 15. So I started doing well from like 16, 17, all the way through. But it sort of made me feel maybe it is true, because I wasn't doing well in school. Maybe it is true. Maybe if you're just a pretty, it's almost like this thing that was constantly being said around me, whether, and my context is people are very blunt, like they're not politically correct. They will tell you straight to your face. Actually, fast forward, when I did get married, I remember a friend of my husband coming over to visit, and I made them a really good meal, and was really welcoming to them. And they said to me, when we were seeing you getting married, we were like, does she know how to cook? Does she know how to clean? So he was like, actually, like, again, he's our friend, so he spoke freely. He was like, you can actually cook. You're really so. Yeah, I just, that has been a struggle. Basically, I've always felt underestimated, because all you have to bring on a plate is a pretty face and nothing else. And for a long time, I sort of thought, why am I underestimated? I didn't like that feeling, but I've come to accept it, in the sense that I would rather be underestimated and I outperform the expectations someone has for me, than be overestimated and then underperform. So yeah, so let me know, like, what you guys' experience have been. Have you met pretty people that fit that narrative of they think they're all that, and they're not friendly, they're standoffish? Or if you have been the pretty face or the pretty person in your context, and you just haven't been taken seriously, because basically all you have to offer is a pretty face and nothing else. So yeah, I would love to hear you guys what your thoughts are on that. Let me know in the comment section. Once again, don't forget to subscribe, click the notification bell. I know I've gone straight in. This is the second. Who comes on YouTube and says I was the pretty face? But oh well, there you have it. Thanks guys for watching.